and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is covered by two ladies who play games, shout profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
My name is Emily, and yes, welcome back. I don't know what happens. Sometimes I do the disclaimer, and I feel like all of the words that come out of my mouth all sound like very nasally, like
At least you don't have to listen back to this whole thing and just be like, man, I'm so fucking
I know.
annoying.
I had a couple people recently asked me where they were like, oh yeah, you do a podcast, like how often do you listen to your podcast? And I'm like, oh god, never. That's Jen's job. You think I want to embarrass myself twice over the same thing? No, thank you.
Well, I listen to our podcast multiple times a week, so I'm our number one listener.
Yeah, you
Truly.
are our number one listener. That's true. Oh god. Well,
I'm just so dedicated to the Wheel of Crime life.
she's all about the crime wife.
I'm all about the crime life. I did because I know you're gonna ask me about my week. I was telling Emily before this, I've embarrassed myself at work, is what I've done this week. I was talking to a coworker about child trafficking, which is a very serious topic.
I'm not laughing over that.
And the thing that came out of my stupid mouth was, I'm really into the dark web. And then I realized how stupid that sounds, because what I meant was I'm really into documentaries about the dark web, because I had just watched one like a couple nights ago, and the look on this person's face was like, right. And I'm like, to clarify, I have never been on the dark web.
I just love the image of you with like a group of your coworkers, and it's already a weird conversation, and you're like, yeah, I like browsing the dark web.
I'm just like, you know what? I think I need to go home now. I think I'm just gonna fire myself.
It's time to go out back. So Jen's week is definitely I would say been a much harder week than mine. Mine's just boring, which is hard in a different way, I guess. But I've been trying to really dig deep on something fun and interesting, since I just spend so much time being fun and interesting these days. Tons.
Yes, tons.
I have really lately been getting into building healthier eating habits, which feels like the lamest shit on earth to say out loud. But I was like evaluating how it makes sense in my brain, like when you're like younger and people are like, oh, the importance of a healthy balanced meal. I feel like I just took that in as like, yeah, obviously, and then just like never thought about putting that into practice.
Yeah, I remember people telling me that, and I was like, cool, I'll worry about that when I'm fucking dead.
That was literally me. I'm like, I'll eat a banana when I'm in the ground. So what I've been doing is I like actually put the time into looking up like why it is that people eat certain things at certain times of the day and why. And I've been like practicing, I guess you could call it. And funny enough,
that's very wise of
what
you.
I've been doing is I do like a loaded oatmeal bowl in the morning, which, to be clear, I fucking hate oatmeal. But I decided to give this a shot because I was like, I feel like if I'm just eating random brown mush of some kind, I could do something to it that makes it more than just your regular brown mush. So
even though you told my dad that oatmeal wasn't healthy.
Well, it's not technically. It's what you have with it. So I've been doing like
this man literally just eats like warm oats, like nothing else, raw dog and that, and Emily's like, it's not healthy, and he was so shocked.
I mean,
he was like, what do you mean
it's
not healthy?
Raw dogging oats, I refuse to believe that's healthy for a person, regardless of what the food is or not.
I'm sure he put something else in there, but in my mind, he's just raw
I
dogging
really like the
oats.
mental image of your dad just like digging fistfuls of oats out of a bag and just like throwing them into his mouth.
You know what? That's the image we're going
That's what I
with.
choose to believe. But I've been doing it with like flaxseed and chia seeds and like plain Greek yogurt and like I've been dabbling in fruits. So like apples and bananas and peanut butter and shredded coconut. And it turns out that if you eat something with fiber that's not just a pile of sugary dog shit in the morning, not only do you not get super hungry in the middle of the day, you actually feel kind of good. And then when evening comes and I have a normal sized meal because I don't feel like I'm about to fall over dead, and I actually have the time to make something that's like kind of healthy and well balanced as well, and then I go to bed and I'm getting my honk me me me's, and then I wake up the next day without a headache. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. I don't know. I don't know.
Sounds
It's kind of
kinda
nice. Oh, and then here's the other thing too. Having a tea before bed, like a hot tea, has exponentially increased the quality of my sleep. Like a giant lame-o. And I don't get the science behind it. It's just people online are like, yeah, it's like warm liquids, relax your system. I could care less. But it works. I don't get it. Right?
I mean,
I don't get it,
whatever
but it
works.
works. And it also helps with like after dinner bloating. Again, I don't get how it works, but it works.
You know what? Maybe
It's
I'll give
worth
it a try.
It's worth it at least for the shot, you know? So that would be what I've been up to recently that, you know, is super thrilling and exciting and that everybody wants to do.
Very thrilling.
And then also trying out bamboo bras made of bamboo. Turns out, big fan. Feels like you're wearing nothing.
I honestly love that. I've been meaning, Emily one day texted me and she's like, listen, we're into bamboo bras now. Get on it, girly. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Like, I'll order whatever you tell me, girly pop. Because if you know anything about Emily and I, is we are each other's greatest influencers.
Actually, though, it's like, what was it? We were talking the other week about influencers. We really should have just brought up then, you know, we actually are just influencing each other over and over again.
Yeah, like, constantly. She's like, I'm like, I want Uggs. And she's like, I'm adding Uggs to my cart now. And she's like, I want Doc Martens. And I'm like, I'm adding Doc Martens to my cart now.
This was Doc Martens. So, surprise to nobody, really. But, yeah, I've been trying to put Jenn onto Egyptian cotton sheets. Turns out, not a scam. Feel really nice. Merino wool socks. Also not a scam. Really nice. And then bamboo bra and underwear. Also not a scam. Really nice. So I don't get it, but
I did invest in the Egyptian cotton sheets and can confirm
genuinely life-changing. I don't get it. And like they feel cleaner. I don't understand how any of this works.
They just like, I feel like they're not even that much more expensive than regular, like, because a regular sheet set is kind of expensive. Like, unless you're getting like the fucking jersey sheets from like Walmart, like, which that shit's gonna pill and like be destroyed in 2 seconds. But I feel like they're really not that much more expensive than a regular set of sheets, and like they just feel so like lax. Like, I feel like I'm crawling into like a nice silky bed without being in silk sheets and flying off my bed.
But that's what I mean, though. It's like what you just said too. You hear these things, or at least I used to hear these things, and I'm like, oh god, I'll never have the money for these things. They are like not that much more expensive. It's even like the stupid merino wool socks and the bamboo underpants, literally about the same price as what you're paying for literally anything else these days, and they actually are so nice.
I know. I don't know. I feel like the little luxuries and like the little upgrades make such a difference in daily life.
It does
you
make
know,
me feel like I'm just I'm not just tiptoeing into my 30s, but swan diving into my Egyptian cotton clad 30-year-old lifestyle. Sipping a hot tea.
Same,
It's
unfortunately.
tough over here. But yes,
Fuck.
I think we should get into our episode here today, though, before everybody falls asleep from how boring we are.
Talking about fucking sheets and underwear. God, we've really hit a new low.
Well, at least it's
The
not
weather.
telling all of your coworkers. Oh yeah, or the weather. But at least it's not telling all of your coworkers that you're really into the dark web.
It wasn't my greatest moment, okay? I don't know what came over me there. But anyways, we're gonna move on and I'm gonna try and repress that memory.
Sounds good. Wheel me. What would you do if you ever discovered that you lived beside a haunted house?
Well, I think it would depend if my house also became haunted. Because if my house was haunted,
So
I would burn it down and move.
I know. So this is why I put the question as it's not your house, but it is the house beside your house.
I think I would not burn my house down. I would try and, like make some money off of it, go through it the legit way. But I would definitely be moving because I don't want to be walking up to my like front door and like see some spooky ass witch in the window of the neighbor's house. Like I'm not about that life.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I felt like when I wrote this question, I was like, it's not really something that I've ever considered. Like, I feel like typically if somebody's talking about a haunted house, you're not really thinking about what the neighbors are living like.
Yeah.
So I was
true.
like,
That's a great question.
because technically they're impacted, but they're not. Like, it's not like there's a ghost or whatever the fuck in their house. So I'm like, if I discovered that I lived beside a haunted house, I feel like obviously I would take into consideration like how long have I lived at this place before being told that my neighbor's house was haunted? Because I feel like if you've already lived there for like 5 years and then one day they're like, oh my god, did you know that my house has always been haunted? I'd be like, if I didn't know during this whole time of 5 years, none of my business.
That is a very good point. But like unfortunately, I feel like you would inevitably like especially if you're going based off of horror movie logic, where those bitches are getting like thrown against walls. Like what a racket!
Dragged out on the front lawn.
What a racket it would be to live next to those people.
Oh yeah, like if my neighbor's house was haunted and they were getting dragged out into the woods every day, I'd be
I'd be like,
pissed.
okay, I know it's 3 a.m. and this is kind of your thing, but keep it down.
Yeah, but I like to sleep with the window cracked so that I can get some fresh air on my nose. So you're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to shut the fuck up, respectfully, and don't come over to my house.
Here,
respectfully.
Counter, instead of 3 a.m. being dragged into the woods, what about a say 3 p.m.?
1
Can we
p.m.
just like full loop-de-loop?
How about noon? Does that work for everyone?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to reschedule this haunting, please.
Yeah, respectfully. Could you consider relocating to a different house?
Yeah, exactly. But with that, let's spin for our next question. Have you ever considered becoming a nun?
Funny enough, I have. I feel like I went through a phase as a child where I was like, I wonder what it would be like to be a nun, and like, I did think about it because I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to like, be like one of the chosen ones. And then I learned like all the shit they have to do and like, devote themselves, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, not interested.
I really, truly, deep in my heart and soul believe that the thought process of becoming a nun is just something that all young Catholic girls go through at some point.
Think so.
Because for me, I was like, oh, you could be surrounded by your friends all day, get to sing songs.
No, man.
And then, at the time, my family was really big into watching The Sound of Music, and I was like, oh my god, I could be like Maria from The Sound of Music in the convent. Oh my god. Love the smell of incense. Shit is good.
There's some pros, okay? But there's also a lot of cons.
For me personally, I would say that I don't think the nunnery wants me.
They don't want me either. I don't think I'm their gal. I I remember also being really pissed when my parents were like, no, you can't be a priest, but you could be a nun. And I was like, well, I can be a fucking priest. Watch it. Watch me, bitch.
Yeah, you're like, actually, I can be whatever the fuck I want.
Like,
Watch me.
when they told me I couldn't be a priest, that just inspired me more. I was like, okay,
Yes.
bet I'm gonna become a priest.
Watch, 10 years from now, Jen's gonna be marrying people. Like,
Ordained.
whatever. Like,
I'm gonna be fucking ordained.
yeah, you're gonna be an ordained minister.
See me now, bitches.
Take it in. Look at me now. Oh my god. Okay, let's spin for our next question. I like to have to say things like a stupid valley girl sometimes. Either way, the next question is, what's your opinion on historical homes?
I love them. I love them. Honestly, when my husband and I first started kind of looking at homes, it was back in, I want to say 2021 when we actually started looking. And there was this one house next to a really big, pretty park in the city that I live in. And it was this blue 1912 historical home, like all of like the original flooring and stuff, and like a lot of like the original details. And I still think about that place. It was like, it's crazy though, because the real estate, I don't know if anyone knows anything about the Canadian real estate market, especially in one of the bigger cities, but like it was like a 2 or 3 bedroom bungalow, and it was like at that time almost $600K. And
oh, that's so painful.
I know, I was just like, oh, it's a lot of money for not a lot of space. But it was
that's
so like cute and charming, and I honestly still think about it. That's the one that got away.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm so on Facebook Marketplace, probably because I interact with them every time they come up, but I keep having historical homes pop up for sale on there for me to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm obsessed. I have the same opinion as you. I love historical homes. There's something about a well-maintained historical home that has its like original hardwood, all these different things, that is just such a particular experience. And the style, it's always so the style of how they were built. It's the banisters, it's the landings, it's the crown molding. It blows me away. There was in our place of that we come from,
our hometown,
our place of origin, there was a historical home that actually went for sale not far from where I work. And I remember looking at it because, first of all, the location is horrific. Genuinely worst location that could come from our hometown. But the place itself was like a Dutch-inspired Victorian blended home.
My gosh.
Oh my god. The front room was literally, so what it was like Victorian styled for like the square part of the home. So like it looked square, but then it had like rounded corners. So like there was like an office that had like a rounded window and a rounded sitting corner, and like genuinely, dude, gorgeous. The top windows of this place, because it came up kind of like a steeple, right? Like a pointed roof, and like the windows up at the top by the steeple, all stained glass, and the color of this place was like a goldenrod yellow, and I was like, fuck, I want it so bad.
That's like my dream, dude.
And like and the condition of sale was just that you had to keep the plaque in front that like details that it's like one of the historic homes of the town. And I was like,
and I get a free plaque.
A free plaque. But then also it means that you can't just pick up the home and relocate it somewhere else. It has to stay there where it is, which is genuinely so unfortunate for where it is. But I did drive past it the other day, and an acupuncturist moved in who is selling their services out of the house, and I'm a little bit jealous every single time I drive by.
Well, maybe you need to go get some acupuncture done.
Dude, it's been tempting just to see the inside of this place again, because I remember looking at the photos when they first came up, and I was like, oh, they canopied the steeples, because one of the bedroom, like, it lofts into the steeple, and they threw, like, a canopy up there with, like, like
I
plants and stuff,
want
and I was
it.
like, oh my god. Anyways, we could talk about
I
this
yearn for
forever.
it.
So
I
we should spend
yearn.
a
I yearn for
yearn.
some crown
I yearn for
molding.
the old homes. I need it. Also, the most 30s thing we've said on the
Oh,
podcast today. But we should spin for our last
before
question.
I fucking cry.
Yeah. What's worse, fire damage or water damage in a house?
Well, I think you know how I feel about this.
I know how you feel. Um, I do think though, because before I wrote this question, I kind of did a little bit of research because I was like, yeah, like as far as like buying a home, what are the kinds of things that people pay attention to as far as damages? So water being the primary one, but secondarily it is also fire because an electrical fire technically falls under that category too. So I was like, okay, so they each have like there's no pros obviously, but they each have their own like specific cons, especially when it comes to like moving
Mm-hmm.
into the house afterwards. But which of the two, so what's worse to you of the two? I already know, obviously. But also explain why though you think it's worse.
It's hard because I don't know that it's necessarily worse, but I think I have more trauma with water damage. And it was the like a
Yeah.
number one thing that we were like very closely paying attention to when we were buying was the water damage because of our apartment or our neighbor's apartment flooding, seeping through to ours, them lifting up the baseboards and realizing it was full of black mold. And us realizing that some of the health things we had going on were, in fact, black mold poisoning.
This is for anybody who is potentially a new listener. This is the precursor of the story to how Jenn was homeless for like a month randomly in the middle of winter, like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, good times. Good times. So, no, we're very, like, I think sensitive to water issues. It's so funny, though, because I remember in our first apartment, I mean, granted, it never got that cold because we were living in BC.
Mm-hmm.
For our Canadian people who that comment is relevant to. Anyways, milder climate where we were. And I remember when we would go home for Christmas break, I, as like an 18-year-old who knew nothing, would turn off the heat fully and then leave in the middle of winter.
Girlfriend.
And like we'd come back and everything was fine, right? Like, because it didn't get that cold there. But I remember thinking about that a few years later when we'd had this experience. I was like, I was literally like, just like so lucky that we didn't come back to a burst pipe.
Oh, 1000%. But yeah, in that situation, it is a good thing that you were living in a milder climate. Now that I think about it, though, I think 18-year-old Emily probably would have done the same thing, and she's very lucky that basically she was just living in a hotel for a time where I don't think they would have allowed her to have access to turning the water off, so that was not an option.
Yeah, especially because in British Columbia, the heating is through hydro, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways. What about you? What's worse in your opinion?
Oh, God. So, like I said, I did a deep dive because, so, I was thinking back to places that I'd lived, and I feel like it's more common where we're from, just because it does get so cold for such a longer portion of the year, that is more common to come across water damage. So, I've had my share of experiences of what that looks like, but I was also curious about fire damage. And between the two, I would say that fire damage probably ends up being the more expensive, more calamity type issue because, like, say if your frame ends up getting damaged in your house, like, no homie, you ain't living there. But at the same time, like you mentioned earlier, if you're having black mold in your home, nuh-uh, homie, you ain't living there either. So it's kind of like it is very much a pick your poison thing. I do think, in my opinion, though, between the two, that the fire damage, at least from what I was able to see, seems to be more manageable. Like, to be fair, you would need to literally remove your walls to fix some stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like mold specifically, too, because that is primarily associative with water damage, is such a tough one because once the spores are in your house, you're basically having to redo your whole home.
It's like shitty because it's like, I mean, every home, this is what people keep telling us. Every home has a little bit of mold. It's just like a matter of whether or not it's like active and like the area is consistently getting wet, which is what was happening in our old place. But like, it's just hard because like we had no flippin' idea, and we were getting sick, like really sick from it. So it's just kind of a scary thought that like, I mean, I guess they call it the silent killer for a reason, but
Well, at least your guys' bedroom was extremely far away from where the poison was hanging out, but either way, not an ideal situation.
no, definitely not.
But do you have an idea today on what my story is going to be for you?
I feel that it's about a ghost at someone's neighbor's house that's in an old Victorian home, and it either floods or burns down, or both.
I'll give you 40%.
Hell yeah. Not above a fail, but pretty close.
Yup. So, for my description for you, the Borley Rectory was a house located in Borley, Essex, famous for being described as the most haunted house in England by psychic researcher Harry Price. Built in 1862 to house the rector of the parish of Borley and his family, the house was badly damaged by fire in 1939 and was then demolished in 1944. So, for this story, I combed through our podcast list, and I'm fairly certain we have not covered it, but between what I cover for stories sometimes and what you cover for stories sometimes, this is like one of those gray ones where it's totally possible that you might have covered it like in the earlier episodes of our show, and that I just didn't recognize enough of the notes to know that. But yeah, I was surprised when I came to the conclusion that maybe we didn't cover this story, because it's an interesting one.
Like, as in it's like very interesting crime-wise or very interesting paranormal-wise?
It's kind of a mix, I would say.
Interesting.
So, with that, I'm going to get into today's story.
Well, take it away, Em.
First coming to national attention in 1929, the rectory would soon become known as the most haunted house in England. Borley is a very small village in North Essex, to the northwest of Colchester, and the rectory was built in 1863 by the Reverend Henry Bull. It seems to have been known for low-level ghostly phenomena for some time. For example, on the 28th of July, 1900, 4 sisters of the Reverend Bull saw the figure of a nun on the rectory lawn. The site on which the rectory was built appears to have been the subject of local legends for many years. In 1956, report on the Borley hauntings by the Society of Psychical Research, it was noted that, according to legend, discredited in 1938, Borley Rectory was built on the site of a 13th century monastery with a nunnery nearby at Burrs. The legend told how an eloping monk and nun were caught and put to death. Apparitions of the nun and the coach in which they fled, as well as a headless coachman, figure in stories current and in the late 19th century.
I forgot about the nun question. I feel like that's where I messed up.
Yeah, so basically this rectory was built on the bones of an old monastery where a nun and a monk shackled up and then were put to death. And there's a headless coachman who also shows up.
Awesome. Well, I mean, this is an Emily story if I've ever heard one.
Isn't it? It for me, when I was reading the part about the headless coachman, I was like, beyond that of Sleepy Hollow, I have never heard of another headless coachman. But apparently, specifically in English ghost stories, this is like a thing that comes up a lot.
It sounds like a very English-esque thing that would be in ye old days. And then the headless coachman
also up my
went
alley.
down Essex Street.
Totally. I've had a few people tell me that it's like England and paranormal just seems to be my vibe. And honestly, I'll take it.
It's true. It's true. That is your vibe. The
Mm-hmm.
European ghost stories.
They are pretty cool, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie, maybe for a reason. But either way, I'll
All
keep
right,
going.
take it away, Em.
So, there's always numerous, or there is always, maybe there is, but actually, there are numerous examples of this type of apparition from across the country, that of the Headless Coachman. The legend is that the rectory was built on the site of a 13th century monastery, but that just seems to be a local story with no foundation in the fact. The Reverend Henry Bull was succeeded by his son Harry, who also became the rector of Borley, and whilst he moved to another house in the villages, his father's sister still lived in the rectory. The Reverend Henry or the Reverend Harry Bull. I feel like if your name is Henry, you should not be naming your son something nearly identical.
Also, Harry Bull is his name. Like, that's just so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just child cruelty at that point.
I know, it's one step away from just naming him Harry Testicle or something. I feel like it's just way too close.
Like, poor kid didn't stand a chance.
Not one. But the poor kid, the Reverend Harry Bull, died in
Harry
Bull, died in 1927, and then 2 years later, the Reverend G. Eric Smith took over the living of Borley and moved to the rectory. The Reverend and his wife were so concerned by the rumors that the rectory was haunted that they got in touch with the editor of the Daily Mirror for help in contacting a cyclical researcher. Following the Reverend Smith's request to the Daily Mirror, the newspaper arranged for Harry Price to visit the rectory. In the 1920s, Price was one of the best known and most prolific psychic journalists of his generation, and he did expose the fraudulent activities of many mediums, so he had some credibility in the research of ghostly phenomena. The Daily Mirror published an article on the 12th of June, 1929, announcing that Harry Price was being sent to investigate, and also published details from a witness who had experienced the phenomena that apparently had plagued the rectory. And this is a quote. Haunted room in rectory. Old servant story of a midnight visitor. Laying the ghost. Psychic expert to investigate Suffolk mystery. One of the leading British psychological experts is to investigate the mystery of the ghost of the Borley Rectory, Suffolk described in the Daily Mirror. It is an effort to lay the ghost by the heels and either prove or disprove its existence. Mr. Harry Price, honorary director of the National Laboratory of Psychic Research, is to conduct the investigation. Mr. Price is famous in this country for his research work and his exposures of psychic phenomena. Striking confirmation of the weird experiences of the present and past occupants of the rectory is forthcoming from Miss E. Myford of Newport, Essex. In a letter to the Daily Mirror, Miss Myford reveals that 43 years ago, when she was a maid at the rectory, similar phenomena were quite openly discussed in the rectory and the neighborhood. Much of my youth was spent in Borley and district, with my grandparents, writes Miss Myford, and it was common talk that the rectory was haunted. Many people declared that they had seen figures walking at the bottom of the garden. I once worked at the rectory 43 years ago as an under nursemaid, but I only stayed there a month because the place was so weird. The other servants told me my bedroom was haunted, and I took little notice of them because I knew 2 ladies of the house had been sleeping there before me. But when I had been there a fortnight, something awakened me in the dead of the night. Someone was walking down the passage towards the door of my room, and the sound they made suggested that they were wearing slippers. As the head nurse always called me at 6 o'clock, I thought it must be she. But nobody entered the room, and suddenly I thought of the ghost. The next morning I asked the other 4 maids if they had come to my room, and they all said that they had not, and tried to laugh me out of it. But I was convinced that someone or something in slippers had been along the corridor. I finally became so nervous that I left. My grandparents would never let me pass the building after dark, and I would never venture into the garden or the woods at dusk.
Wow. I mean, I've had some bad jobs, but never that bad.
No, I have not had a ghost harass me in the middle of the night, thankfully, at one of my jobs. And I've worked in strange places.
I definitely would quit.
If I was to tell you a story about how a ghost haunted me at my job, I feel like that's something that Jenn would 100% believe. But I feel like that's more than what a person needs, you know?
I would agree. I feel like she should have sued the ghost.
Sue the ghost.
Just because they're dead doesn't mean they can harass you.
No. I also love that it's so notorious, this house, that the grandparents are like, yeah, you shouldn't be walking back past that place at night. And she's like, I'll do you one better. I'll get a job there and I'll sleep inside of it. That way I don't have to walk past it.
Honestly, it sounds like something I would do.
That is something you would do. You'd be like, haha, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to sleep in there.
You don't think I should go there? Joke's on you, already moved in.
Yeah, guess what? My shit's already packed and they're unloading my suitcase right as we speak. Just as you told me this. I already knew. I knew it.
I knew that you didn't want me to do it,
so I did
exactly why I'm here.
And that is why I'm here. That's very Jenn coded. So then on the 14th of June, 1929, the Mirror published an update covering the first visit of Harry Price to the rectory. Weird night in haunted house shape that moved on lawn of Borley Rectory. Strange wrappings. Articles flying through the air seen by watchers. There can no longer be any doubt that Borley Rectory is the scene of some remarkable incidents. Last night, Mr. Harry Price, director of the National Laboratory for Cyclical Research, his secretary, Miss Lucy Kay, and the Reverend G.E. Smith, rector of Borley, Miss Smith and myself were witnesses to a series of remarkable happenings. All these things occurred without the assistance of any medium or any kind of apparatus. And Mr. Price, who is a research expert only and not a spiritualist, expressed himself puzzled and astonished at the results. To give the phenomena a thorough test, however, he is arranging for a séance to be held in the rectory with the aid of a prominent London medium. The first remarkable happening was the dark figure I saw in the garden. We were standing in the summer house at dusk watching the lawn when I saw the apparition which so many claimed to have seen, but owing to the deep shadows it was impossible for one to discern any definite shape or attire. But something certainly moved along the path along the other side of the lawn, and although I immediately ran across to investigate, it had vanished when I reached the spot. Then as we strolled towards the rectory discussing the figure, there came a terrific crash, and a pane of glass from the roof of the porch hurtled to the ground. We ran inside and upstairs to inspect the rooms over the porch, but found nobody. A few seconds later we were descending the stairs, Miss Kay leading and Mr. Price behind me, when something flew past my head, hit an iron stove in the hall, and shattered. With our flash lamps, we inspected the broken pieces and found them to be sections of a red vase, which, with its companion, had been standing on the mantelpiece of what is known as the Blue Room, which we had just searched. We sat on the stairs in darkness for a few minutes. Just as I turned to Mr. Price to ask him whether we had waited long enough, something then hit my hand. This turned out to be a common mothball, though it had dropped from apparently the same place as the vase. I laughed at the idea of a spirit throwing mothballs about, but Mr. Price said that such methods of attracting attention were not unfamiliar to investigators. Finally came the most astonishing event of the night. From 1 o'clock until nearly 4 in the morning, all of us, including the rector and his wife, actually questioned the spirit, or whatever it was, and received the most emphatic answers. A cake of soap on the washstand was lifted and thrown heavily onto the china jug standing on the floor with such force that the soap was deeply marked. All of us were at the other side of the room when this happened. Our questions, which we had asked out loud, were answered by raps apparently made on the back of a mirror in the room, and it must be remembered that no medium or spiritualist was present. The reference in the above articles to the National Laboratory for Cyclical Research and implies the credibility of an independent research organization. However, the National Laboratory was the creation of Harry Price, in which he was the director as well. The entrance to the rectory from the road showed that it was a more substantial building than appears from just a view of the front. Perhaps it should not be surprised that as soon as a psychic researcher sent by a national newspaper got involved, that the phenomena in the rectory would become more intense. The Reverend Smith and his family left the rectory and moved to Long Melford, not just because of the ghostly happenings, but also because of nuisance created by the publicity. Then, all of it went quiet. The Reverend Smith and his family moved to a new parish in Norfolk, and Borley remained without a rector until the 16th of October, 1930, when Reverend Lionel A. Foister moves in with his family, and the ghostly phenomena starts up again, this time, however, with increasing violence. One of the phenomena...
Spooky.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to me that anybody moved there actually after it made public news, but who's to say?
It's so interesting how that happens. Like, I'm trying to remember the name of the family that was. It got really big because the Warrens investigated, and it's interesting that like all of that public attention just makes people. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It makes people way more interested, and then people want to like move there and like,
Yeah, I guess.
it's like adds value because it's like that crazy famous haunted house.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. I feel like also, since this is like a place primarily where priests are living, though, to me that adds like a little extra flavor of even the priests aren't safe, which is a little freaky, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, is this not the premise of every fucking horror movie that's come out?
I guess
The
it
priests
all
are
comes
never
from
safe.
somewhere.
The priests are never safe, Emily.
I guess. I don't watch enough horror movies, I guess. I don't know the stereotypes.
I think it was the last Conjuring movie that came out. I can't remember which one. But yeah, the priest gets fucking detonated and like murdered in the most brutal way
Jesus Christ.
by a demon.
Well, a demon would...
While at like a big fancy church building or something.
A demon would do that. I feel a demon would do that.
A demon, okay, I'm remembering. I'm sorry, it's coming back to me. A demon impersonated a priest, and so when the priest we were following came in to talk to him, the demon was like, "Gotcha. I'm not a priest. I'm really a demon.
Gotcha, bitch.
And now I'm gonna kill you and make it look like a suicide."
Evil. Sounds exactly like something a demon would do.
It does. It really does.
So one of the phenomena witnessed during Foyster's time in the rectory was wall writing, where appeals were made to Marianne, who is the wife of Reverend Forster. Reverend Forster, or Foyster, was a cousin of Reverend Harry Bull, and the sisters were still living close by as they got into...
It's still funny.
And it is still funny. And the sisters were still living close by as they got in contact with Harry Price to ask him to make a return visit. An exorcism was held, and the phenomena abruptly ceased. It took them this long. You've had 7 priests move through there, and not once has anybody performed an exorcism. That's just laziness. I feel like the wives or somebody or the priests was like, no, I don't want to bring work home.
They're like, the paperwork.
I've
Come
just been
on,
doing
there would be so much
all
paperwork.
day, and now you want me to do another one? I just got home.
It's like, does a chef cook when they get home?
Do they?
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Jeez. So then, in October of 1935, the Foyster family moves out, and the rectory is then left unoccupied. The next rector of Borley receives the bishop's permission to live elsewhere. Hilarious. Then the livings of Borley and nearby Liston are combined, which makes the rectory at Borley redundant. In May 1937, Harry Price again visits the rectory and decides to rent the building for a year. He advertised in the Times for people to join him in a comprehensive investigation, and 48 individuals signed up with a rota of visits to monitor the rectory. One of those involved arranged for a planchette to be used. A planchette was a heart-shaped piece of wood mounted on wheels with a hole for a pencil. Those who were sitting where the planchette was used would gently put their hands on the planchette, and it would move, guided by any spirits who wished to communicate. The pencil writing the results on paper below the planchette. The pencil writes the results on paper that sits below the planchette. So this method was used between October and November of 1937, and the scripts generated by the planchette provided considerable details about the nun from the original legends. Her name was given as either Mary or Marie Laire, so Lairre, and she had come from France. The scripts claim that she had been murdered and that she was a novice and had died at the age of 19 in the year 1667, and that her remains could be found at the end of the wall or in the well. Later, in 1943, Price excavated the wells of the cellar of the rectory and found human bones at the bottom of the well. They were assumed to be those of a nun, or those of the nun, and in May 1945 they were buried in a churchyard in Liston. Which, could you imagine being this guy who's like, yeah, I'm like a paranormal expert, and we've been told there's like a body in the well, and then you go and you like take out the well and there is in fact a human body there, I would pass away. That'd be so fucking scary, dude.
That would be terrifying.
Like, I love being right.
See, I would definitely be burning the place down.
Oh, 100%. And I love being right. But I feel like that'd be one of the situations where you kind of hope you're not.
Be like, please. I'm tired of being right. I don't want it anymore.
Can I not be right about spooky shit anymore? Can't it just be about the fun stuff? Please.
Please.
So then, throughout Price's tenancy of the rectory, strange phenomena continued. I kept trying to say concluded. It did not. It did the other thing.
We wish it concluded.
Yeah, it actually kept going. To be observed and felt. There were cold spots, strange noises, taps, bangs, footsteps, and whistles, horses' hooves, lights, and etc. In May 1938, Price's tenancy of the rectory then ends, and the rectory is purchased by a Captain Gregson, who is also reported minor phenomena, as did the visitors of the old rectory. During the night of the 27th of February in 1939, Borley Rectory is destroyed by a fire. During the fire, strange phenomena continue, including the sighting of strange figures walking inside of the flames, and strange happenings continue to be reported in the months after the fire, although at this point the rectory is now in ruins. The saga at the rectory has received continuous national coverage during the 1930s, and in 1940, Price capitalized on the public's interest in the story of the rectory with a book called The Most Haunted House in England. The book resulted in many more people getting into contact with Price to report their strange experiences that they had at the site. The remains of the rectory were then demolished in 1944. However, interest in the story continued, and many people still visit the site, and some people also held seances there. In 1946, Harry Price published his second book on the subject, The End of the Borley Rectory, repeating the subtitle, The Most Haunted House in England. 2 years later, on the 29th of March, 1948, Harry Price died of a heart attack in his home in Pulborough in West Sussex. His papers and archive were deposited then into the University of London. There had always been rumors about the phenomena observed at Borley Rectory, and after Price's death, these rumors started to gain greater credibility. In 1948, a Mr. Charles Sutton, who was on the staff of the Daily Mail, accused Harry Price of fraudulently producing many of the phenomena observed when Sutton visited with Price in 1929. Although, quite why he had left it for so long to make it public, these claims I butchered my own sentence. Although quite why he had left it so long to make public these claims is unknown. Which I'll never understand. Like, when people are like, he's a liar! But it's like, they did something together or they worked together, and it's like 30 years later. I'm like, okay, and? Like, your words mean nothing to me. Like, your words expired, like, a while ago.
Why you no come forward sooner?
It always feels like a weird bit of attention for me, where I'm like, if this mattered once, I feel like you probably should have said it then. Just saying.
I think there is something to be said about, like, weird timing on things when, like, really negative things come out about people when, like, they're about to have, like, you know, a moment of recognition for themselves.
Yeah, like, it's almost like, the equivalent would be, like, if either you or I did something that made the news, and some person from middle school being like, that can't be right.
Oh, she was a bitch.
Yeah, she was whatever, you know, or she cheated on her math test, so that can't be true. And it's like,
babe, why didn't you bring it up in middle school then?
Yeah, if you want to talk about how shitty
why
I am,
didn't you report me to the police?
Yeah, if you want to talk about how shitty I am to the public, you should have done it before now, sucker.
Yeah, come on, bitch.
I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. So then, in 1949, Miss Smith, the wife of Reverend G. Eric Smith, who took over the living of Borley and moved into the rectory in the year 1928, wrote to the Daily Mail asserting her disbelief that the rectory was haunted. In 1956, the Society for Cyclical Research, which is still ongoing today, by the way, it was founded in 1882. The SPR is the first organization to conduct scholarly research into human experiences that challenge contemporary scientific models, just for background. And the SPR published the results of the critical survey of the evidence of the haunting of the Borley Rectory in their proceedings, which, if anybody wants to look it up, it's volume 51, part 186 of January 1956. The report is an in-depth and comprehensive survey of the haunting, and looks at all of the evidence available, although it does make the point that the evidence was not the type that would stand in a court of law, as the evidence mainly consisted of the reports of all of those who had witnessed the phenomena, rather than tangible evidence of a supernatural cause. The rectory was large and had acoustic properties as well, which could explain a lot of the strange noises. The Reverend Harry Bull, as well as being the rector of Borley, also had an interest in spiritualism, and this could have influenced both his view of the rectory as well as how the phenomena was perceived thereafter by others. The report also looked at Harry Price, who was described as possessing a complex personality, whilst to others the motives which inspired him were simple and clear-cut. He was a man of abounding energy, and had a wide range of interests, and a practical acquaintance with good many technical matters from numeristics to radio communication and conjuring. Trained as an engineer, he ran his own amateur workshop, and some of his apparatus and gadgets were first-class workmanship, which I feel like is a very nice way of saying this man has ADHD and autism. They literally were just like, he hyperfixates on stuff, he can't focus on one thing, and he's a very eccentric, quirky, smart guy.
Hell yeah.
Which I can appreciate. I feel like,
I mean, he has the nicer name of the two Harrys, so
he definitely
at least
does.
he's got that going for him.
He does, and I like that they basically were like, yeah, and he do be making gadgets, and I'm like, you know what? A man who makes gadgets is that's a guy you want to be friends with.
You know what? Bring back inventors. Where the fuck are all the inventors?
What the hell? I feel like they're all being kept prisoner at like robotics universities, being forced to make those weird little robots that like look like animals and just like jerk back and forth on their legs. That's where they keep them. They locked all of them up.
Where are the people making the little gadgets to make, eating ice cream go faster, or like,
yeah, like a doohickey. Where are doohickey creators?
Where are the doohickey inventors?
Yeah,
I want my doohickey inventors.
We need to bring back doohickey inventors. We need a Mr. Inspector Gadget for real these days.
Oh, for real. See, that's I think that would solve all of the world's problems if we just brought doohickey inventors back.
I think so too. So then, while many of these skills would have been used to create the phenomena which was observed in the rectory, the report states that there is no firm evidence to suggest that Price did this, and that with his death and the distance of time, it was impossible to prove. The report does refer to his career as a journalist on the subject, and that it was possible to regard Price as a brilliant, if cynical, journalist who used the material gathered in his laboratory or in the field in such a way that its publicity value, that was so hard to say for no reason, was highest. As we have seen, if the material lacked sensational elements, it would seem that he was prepared at times to provide these himself. On the other hand, his motives may have been more complex. He may have thought that there was some genuine basis on which to build his stories, and that by supplying what he thought to be the proper psychological milieu, the genuine elements could easily emerge. The report also focuses on the influence of suggestion and how, once the mind has been affected, belief can be strengthened and simple events misinterpreted in order to fit them into the desired pattern. Which is just basically, they were like, yeah, he was a journalist who took advantage of some of these details, like the more boring details, to like kind of make it seem like it was more than what it actually was.
He's just ahead of his time. That's what they do now.
Yeah, I know. I was like, so he was a journalist. You said that already. What do you mean?
He wrote news headlines.
Yeah, he made a boring story less boring by just writing it differently. Guess what? That shit happens all the time.
Man, what an icon, ahead of his time.
Ahead of his time. Then the article refers to the 1956 Society for Psychical Research report as demolishing the Borley haunting, and then looks at a new book which challenges one of Price's other notable cases, which was that of a young girl named Rosalie, who appeared during a seance after Price was invited to one of the better class London suburbs. Despite all of the challenges to the authenticity of the Borley hauntings, stories about the old rectory and the site continued for long after Price's death. In 1954, there were still newspaper articles being published. One full-page article ended with the following. Recently I stood in the long grass which has grown over the foundations of the rectory and talked with a man who for the last 3.5 years has lived in the coach house which had escaped the fire. Mr. Williams is a retired engineer who keeps a chicken farm there. Quiet, matter-of-fact, and the least mystical person I have ever met. He is not normally at all forthcoming about the haunting. Publicity he knows, will only bring more coach loads of curious sightseers and more mediums who have fallen into trances by the nun's walk. But he admits...
It's true.
Yeah. He's like, publicity brings the strays.
The cuckoos out.
Yeah, the cuckoo's coming here, and I don't want them. Keep them out. He's like, it's me
Honestly,
and my chickens
that's fair.
against the world over here.
Oh, living my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the haunted house.
But he admits, frankly and quite unemotionally, that he's experienced things that have no normal explanations. So this is still in quotes from the article's perspective. He told me of how he had sometimes woken in the night to find a light, a glow he calls it, hovering in his bedroom, and that once he heard quite distinctly footsteps following him across the courtyard at the back of his house. He turned round, but there was no one behind him. Suspecting a trick, he ran around the corner of the house, and still no one. So, what do you think that he'd seen? The nun. This is like them querying him in the article. So what do you think he'd seen? The nun. Mr. Williams took his time before answering on what I had asked, and then said slowly, well, I think perhaps I may have. I was in one of the chicken houses at the time. It was broad daylight, and I saw a figure pass the window. Just a vague outline, really. You couldn't say it was a man or a woman. And then they disappeared. When? Oh, last summer. That was just before the chicken house burnt down.
Ooh, spooky.
And that is the end.
I don't like that.
That is the end of my story for you, the Borley haunting. I know, I was like, so this man is like so nonchalant, right? And then he's like, oh my gosh, I did see. Yeah. He's like, I did see somebody walk past the window when I was taking care of the chickens, but like, that would have been just before.
And then it burnt down.
Yeah, that was just before the chicken coop burnt down. And I'm like, you don't think that might have been okay? Sure.
Whatever you need to tell yourself, guy.
Whatever this man does every day to keep him so cool, calm, and collected.
I need that.
Yeah, I need some of that. Like, I don't know how you... That's a whole level of inner peace that I don't have.
He's so chalant, and, like, I'm so not chalant,
yes.
that, like, I need some of his chalantness, you know?
I do. I need to borrow some more chalant from this guy, but yeah, so that is the story of the Borley Rectory. Have you heard of it before?
I have not.
I had not either. So I thought this whole thing was very interesting because that's a lot of priests to move through this place. And then just for
that's a lot of priests.
And then just for it to burn down and people still being like, I see shit there all the time. It really makes me wonder because at this point on the show, you and I have covered like a lot of ghost stories. It's always so interesting to me how it's like not the building really that's haunted. It's like the area where people are seeing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people saw ghost nuns out on the lawn while the house was still there, or the rectory or whatever they call it. And then it's like, you know, it's burnt down since then. People are still seeing shit. So I'm like, I don't know, if you want to get into like...
It's like attached to that land.
Yeah, it makes me think of those theories that, again, we've covered in previous episodes. I've covered about ghosts where people are like, maybe it has to do with like, you know, there just being particular energies in certain areas where maybe it's just always been kind of like a haunted area, just not necessarily with like the... you know, with actual spirits there or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I definitely thought it was really interesting, and it made me do a deep dive on haunted coachmen, which, like I said, I've heard of before. I just did not realize it was a whole thing.
Well, the more you know. And to a notice to all of our listeners, please, if your last name is Bulls, do not name your son Harry.
No. If your last name is anything somewhat questionable, think long and deep about the name you give them.
very, like, that's what you need to take away from this story, I think.
Because it could come up maybe 20 times in a story that somebody talks about them one day. And do you really want that attached to your name?
You could be raising a criminal is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, so be cautious. Proceed carefully. Be choicey. There's so many names you can pick from. Just saying.
Just really think about it.
Oh, yeah. But if you liked today's episode, you can leave us a review on wherever you're listening to our podcast. We also have our website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com. You can check us out on there. We also have our email, which is wheelofcrime@gmail.com. We have our Patreon, which is Wheel of Crime at Patreon. And we have our social media, which is on Facebook, Twitter, X, same thing. Facebook, X, and TikTok, all at, I feel like I'm missing something.
Instagram.
Instagram and TikTok, all at Wheel of Crime. And lastly, we do always keep our listener form up these days, just in case you listen to an episode and you're like, oh my god, I lived in the Borley Rectory before it burnt down and I'm also 200 years old. You could write in and tell us all about it.
Wow. That would be crazy. That's a story I would definitely want to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you'd have to be over 100, I think. At this point, in this our Lord 2026 or whatever the fuck. So, either way, if you listen to today's story and you're like, I know of something similar, you can write in and tell us all about it and potentially get a feature on our next listener's episode.
Yes, and that's it. That's all. We'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.